everybody. I thought I'd come on here and share how I got diagnosed with MS. My first symptom started September 16, 2019. I only remember that because my son's birthday party we were having on September 17th, so I just happened to remember. Little public service announcement. I am gonna try and keep this short, but it's kind of long, so bear with me. But yeah, so I woke up that morning with what I thought was just a numb lip, just on the one side, and I wasn't really sure what it was, but I was like, it's just my lip. I'm not too overly concerned. Maybe I slept funny. I'm not too sure. So as the day progressed, I realized it was actually the whole left side of my face, all the way up until about halfway up my skull. And so I was like, I don't know what's going on, but I was still able to smile. I had no drooping. So I wasn't overly concerned with it, because obviously when you have any numbness on your face, you're kind of thinking, am I having a stroke? But I could still talk, I could still smile. I remember sending everyone pictures like, does half my face look funny? Because it's completely numb. So I already actually had a doctor's appointment scheduled for the following Monday, for other things. Not going to talk about that right now. So I was like, well, if it's still there that Monday, I'll bring it up with the doctor. And it was still there that Monday. So I brought it up with him, and he was a little concerned just because he said it was coming from different channels. Like, I guess your face is divided into 3 channels, I want to say, and all 3 of them were affected. Don't quote me on these numbers and terminology. I'm just going off of what I remember. And so he decided to send me for a CT scan. So that was scheduled for about 3 weeks later. At that point, my numbness kind of was going away. I still had it. It wasn't as strong as it was like the first probably 2 weeks. Like, eating was extremely funny. Rubbing my eye was so weird. Like, it was completely numb. Like, not slightly numb, it was completely numb. Super weird. So I had my CT scan, it came back clear, and my numbness went away. So I seen my doctor for a follow-up, and we were like, okay, well, there was obviously some inflammation, but it's gone away now, so you're fine. And so we thought. So now, I believe it was in November. I'm not 100% sure on this month. It was either the end of October or beginning of November. And again, I woke up with a new symptom. And that's something you have to remember with MS. Your symptoms are going to just onset quickly. So you go to bed and you wake up and all of a sudden a new symptom appears. So just keep that in mind. So I woke up and I was numb from underneath my breasts down, and completely numb. The oddest spots were the top of my thighs and my stomach. Those were the strangest spots that were numb. Like, it was so numb that, like, I could touch my leg and I could feel it on my hand, but I couldn't feel it on my leg, and it was extremely weird. So obviously I was concerned because A, I just had half a numb face not too long ago, and B, I'm completely numb. So I decided to go to the urgent care here in my town, and it actually ended up being my doctor that was on call, so that was super nice. He did just a little test to make sure that my motor skills were still working and I wasn't like losing actual mobility. And on top of being numb, I also had pins and needles in my hands. So he again wasn't overly concerned. He didn't think it needed to be like addressed that day. I didn't have to go to the other hospital, get any kind of scans. It was just, well, we know it's something, but you're not going to die, pretty much. So he wanted me to wait a couple more days, and if I still had the numbness, he was going to refer me to a neurologist. So I still had the symptoms come that Wednesday, so we sent off the referral, and it took a long time to get my appointment. My appointment was originally supposed to be in February, but due to a cancellation, I was able to go up a month in January. So that was super exciting. But over the next 3 months, I want to say, so November, December, 2 months, until I seen the neurologist, my symptoms were at the highest. I had extreme pins and needles in my hands. I couldn't even touch things with my fingers without feeling like I was slicing my fingertips open. So eating, for example, salt and vinegar chips, it felt like I had an open wound and I was rubbing salt on my fingers. Like, it hurt so bad. I could barely wash my kids' hair. I could barely wash my own hair, because anything with texture, it just killed my fingers. Like, it hurt so much. And on top of having the pins and needles, this was another symptom. And another symptom that slowly started, and it got worse. This is my least favorite symptom I had, and I do not wish it on anybody, because it was so painful. I wouldn't actually say painful, but just irritated. So at first, I always called it my arm was going funny, because there's no way to describe it, and unless it happens to you, you might not even understand what I'm talking about. So it first started with my hand would just kind of go like an intense fall asleep. Like, I described it as like the blood rushing to my hand intensely, like intense. And it first started off with just kind of like my hand, and it would like be a couple seconds, and it would just kind of irritate me, but it wasn't overly long, and it went away fairly quickly. And it was mainly my hand. This always usually happened to my left arm, and the odd time it would happen to my right, but it mainly affected my left. And as the next couple months went on, it progressed like insane. So I would just be doing whatever I'm doing, and I could feel it starting. So thankfully, like, I knew it was coming. So if I was holding Grady, or I was doing something, carrying something, I knew I had to put it down, because I was about to drop it. So it would just be like a rush. I would describe it like a rush of blood, maybe. I'm not too sure. Down my arm, my whole hand would shake. I wouldn't be able to close my hand. It would just be like this. And my whole arm would clench up, and it would stay for probably between, I want to say 3 to 5 minutes. No, actually, I would say 5 to 10 minutes, because there definitely was times where it stayed longer. And then it would go, it just slowly started getting more and more up my body. And then at one point, it went right across my chest, and it took my breath away. Like, it would come and go, and it would take me a good hour to 2 hours to recuperate from the effects of this symptom. And after it would happen, I would have a very difficult time using my hands after. They would just be hard to work with. They would just not want to work. as often. The pins and needles would be intensified. They were starting to feel a little numb. There was a lot of problems in my hands is where I experienced a lot of my symptoms. And as well as the pins and needles, I also had extreme weakness in my hand. So I would have trouble writing things. I would have trouble cutting things. I would actually have to use like my arm to hold something down because I just couldn't grip things enough. Like, and even like if I was using a knife, I would have to push down with my other arm to actually cut something. It was quite a lot of symptoms I was dealing with over that couple of months. I'm sure I have more symptoms. Oh, right. That reminds me of another one. My other symptom was, I still get it sometimes. It's not all the time, but I just got it there. So, if I look down, it sends a complete vibration in my whole body. And sometimes it's so intense, like I can feel it down to my feet, and all my limbs. Sometimes it's just a little bit, I forget what it's called, but it's like ligament or something, or I would have to look it up, but it's a strong electrical sensation through your whole body. So it just did again. And that's just something, I think a lot of people with MS experience that. That is a symptom that I still have. It hasn't gone away. If anything, it just fluctuates on how the severity of it is when I look down. I remember the first time it happened, I was in the truck, and I looked down to pick up something, and I like bolted up. I was like, what the heck just happened? Because I could feel it in my thighs, and I was like, what the heck just happened? And so that was another extreme symptom that I had. And as well as, so my numbness probably lasted, I would say, just over a month. And then that went away. But the rest of my symptoms I had up until the last time I had my arm symptom was the end of February. Actually, when I went away to Cuba, that was the last time I had one of my arm symptoms, which thank goodness, I hope it never comes back. I dread the day it comes back, if it ever comes back, because I would cry all the time because sometimes it would do my left, and then within minutes it would do my right, and like it just wiped me out completely. It was a lot of discomfort. It wasn't so much painful, it was just uncomfortable. And so I seen my neurologist in January, and he did a physical, or like a neurological physical. There we go. And I explained all the symptoms I had over the last couple months. He told me he didn't have any, he knew there was some inflammation happening but he didn't want to tell me what he thought it might have been, just because he needed MRI results before he wanted to scare me. He didn't want to say what I thought it was because MRI takes a long time here where I live. So I left that appointment a little frustrated because I thought he was going to tell me something, and all he told me was I was having inflammation, and until I get the MRI, there's nothing he can do. That was January. I got my MRI finally in April. So February to March, April. Oh no, January to February, March, April. Okay, so sorry. 3 months later, I finally got my MRI. So that was of my brain, my spinal cord, and my spine. And that was like an hour-long MRI. And if you've never had an MRI, it's like a straight-up techno party up in there. like the whole time, like I bursted out laughing actually one time because like it was just so funny. It was like boom, 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 din it, boom, din it, boom, din. Like the whole time it was like a techno party going on, and you're just like constantly moving back and forth, but your eyes are closed. I could have fell asleep, but so I had that done, and then a couple weeks later he called me. Actually, I think it was a week later he called me with my probable MS diagnosis. He did start me on medication. He would have started me on a steroid, but with the sudden COVID like sudden arrival of COVID, he didn't want to give me steroids because they do weaken your immune system quite a bit. And then, so I started on medication to help reduce the inflammation. And then he sent me for blood work to rule out other possible autoimmune disorders, because a lot of other autoimmune disorders mimic MS symptoms. And so that took 2 weeks, and I was like, oh my goodness. They took like 11 vials of blood. They had to send it off to Calgary. I'm pretty sure that's where they do the Lyme disease testing. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm very positive that that was the one. They don't have testing for that here in Manitoba, so it gets sent away. And so for 2 weeks, I was like, do I have MS? Like, he didn't tell me, like, he just said probable MS. He said, based off of my symptoms and my thing, I am probable MS, and once I get my blood work back, he will give me my final diagnosis. So I called the day it was marked that I should know, and I called, and the nurse called me back, and I was so kind of upset about that because I'm like, this is how you're telling me? You could have at least called me yourself. Anyways, the nurse called me and she said, yep, you have MS. And then she said, and now you're going to be referred off to the MS clinic, because he is just a general neurologist. So he doesn't specialize in MS. He is just able to diagnose it. So I was able to see my neurologist in, I think May it was. Yeah, May. I had my appointment with my neurologist, which I am so sad to say he has left the province. Actually, I think he still has a couple more days before he's gone. So I got a letter, I think last week, about my neurologist leaving, so I'm going to be getting a new one. So my appointment with him for December is now canceled, so I'm not sure when I'm going to see a new neurologist, but eventually I will see a new neurologist with the MS clinic here in Manitoba. And so he gave me my diagnosis of relapsing remittent multiple sclerosis. So that is the one you want if you do get diagnosed with MS, because there is 2 types. Actually, I think there is 3 types, which so there's RRMS, and then there's the progressive relapsing, I think it's progressive relapsing MS, which is the disease just progressively gets worse. So that's the one you don't want, because with RRMS, you can have flare-ups and you can go into remission, where the progressive one, you're just slowly going to get more and more symptoms before you can end up with no mobility in the end. And then there's also secondary progressive, which is when you've been diagnosed with RRMS and it is then switched. So your secondary now is diagnosed with the progressive one. So you can get RRMS and then you can actually change into progressive. So I could go into there is just so much information. But yeah, so then he gave me a list of 8 medications to choose from, and I started on my Glaytec injections. I'm on my 3rd month now, so I hope they're doing well. I think it takes about 6 months to get to see if the medication is working or if it's not. So hopefully, my fingers are crossed it's working. And yeah, that's kind of how I got diagnosed and symptoms that I had. And today has been a tough day. I find anytime I overdo it, I just get like wiped out for a good probably week. And it's hard to know. I mean, with COVID, you stress about every little thing, but then when you have an autoimmune disorder that gives you symptoms, it's hard to just like ignore them without stressing that it's something else. But yeah, if I do too much work, like 2 weekends ago, I cleaned out the garage and I just felt like I got hit by a bus for a whole week. And then this past week, we had a lot going on with both of our birthdays, and now again, I just feel like I've been hit by a bus. And I know it's not COVID, and it's just my MS, but it's still frustrating because it sucks that it just takes... Anyways, I don't know what I'm going... I am so exhausted. But I just want to kind of tell you guys a little bit more about my MS. I'm going to add in a little question box, and you guys can throw in some questions, and I will answer any question you guys have in a little Q&A video. So yeah, feel free to ask whatever you want, and I'll do my best to answer them. Have a good day.